Noor crossed the tree line into a beautiful clearing here. The trees broke their formation, and the sun showed its bright yellow face walking. Under the blue sky, she heard a woodpecker drumming in the distance, and insects buzzing about. In between all of the sounds, there was a deep, comforting silence. Noor put down her backpack and took off her shoes and socks. She giggled loudly when her bare feet touched the soil. It felt rather cool. The grass was soft and dewy still. Noor enjoyed these sensations. They were refreshing, like a glass of cold lemonade. At first, she tiptoed from flower to flower, curious like a butterfly. Then, with her arms wide open, she ran through the clearing, mimicking the sound of an airplane, trying to catch the wind. A yellow cape fluttered behind her when she finished exploring. Noor slowed down to fully enjoy the sunshine, lying flat on her back. She gazed at the sky and studied the small, wispy clouds. She wondered if they were sticky like cotton candy, or if they just happened to look similar. As she pondered her answer, Noor spotted a tiny black silhouette. It was a bird gliding through the air gracefully, like in a choreograph to dance. Noor had always dreamed about flying. She climbed tall mountains to be closer to the sky. She wore her yellow cape to determine the wind's direction, and she loved all kinds of flying creatures. There were many lessons to be learned. Insects buzzed because of their rapid wing movements. Butterflies contracted their bodies to propel themselves through the air, trusting the wind. Some migratory birds traveled up to months without stopping. Flying was pretty incredible, and Noor could dream of nothing she wanted. More mesmerized, Noor watched the bird in the sky. She thought about its feathery wings and the feeling of weightlessness. Every time she imagined this feeling, Noor couldn't help but to smile. And even though she wasn't a bird, she knew that one day she would fly with them back on her feet and ready to resume her walk through the forest. Noor noticed something peculiar. A gigantic tree stood right in the heart of the clearing. That's strange. She thought the tree hadn't been there a few minutes ago when she was running around through the grass, unsure of what to believe, and closed her eyes and gently pinched her arm. It wasn't a dream. The tree was still there. It stood majestically under the glowing sunlight and put on her striped socks and laced up her sneakers. Then, feeling more than a little excited, she moved towards the mysterious tree. The closer she got, the larger it seemed. It had a sturdy trunk, countless branches and roots that were thick, twisted and aged, standing next to the tree. Noor felt the size of an ant. The tree's broad crown reached the clouds, and its trunk was so wide that it looked like multiple trees hugging. She touched the tree's wrinkly bark and introduced herself. The emerald leaves moved left and then right, as if they were waving, hello encouraged by the quick response, and walked around the tree and talked to it about her family, her friends, and her dreams of flying. She proudly presented her yellow cape. Although she wasn't sure that the tree would understand its function. As Noor walked and talked to the tree, she noticed something shimmering close to its base. It was a beautiful feather. She picked it up, interested in. Examining it up close, the feather was large, soft and iridescent blue. "What a treasure!" and whispered to herself, reaching in her backpack. She took out a picture book with colourful birds. She turned page after page until she reached the end. By the looks of it, this feather didn't belong to a parrot, a peacock, or any other bird in the book. Slightly confused, Noor wondered about the beautiful bird with iridescent blue feathers. Why wasn't it in her book? How did it lose its feather? And more importantly, did it live up in this tree? With her head tilted backwards, Noor inspected the old tree. Once more, it didn't take long before she spotted a big nest built on 2 forked branches near the trunk. Curious to find out more, Noor decided to climb the tree. It had many broad limbs, so she felt confident that she could reach the nest first. She took off her backpack and cape. Since those could slow her down, then she reached cautiously towards the lowest branch. She expected the climb to be at least somewhat challenging. But as Noor climbed up the first branch, she noticed that the tree's numerous wrapping branches were perfectly designed for this. They looked like the twisting staircase of an old castle, leading all the way to the top. It was as if the tree was asking for someone to climb it. Feeling safe and excited, Noor climbed. Branch after branch, with every step she took, her view changed slightly. Soon her colourful backpack was lost beneath the leaves. The clouds were so close that she could almost touch them at the end of the branch ladder and found the nest. Just like the giant tree, it had unusually large proportions and was made of interwoven sticks and lined with moss along the inside. A purple egg laid right in the centre of a bed of dry grass. A pillow of blue feathers, just like the one Noor found below, kept the egg warm and cosy with careful steps. Noor climbed inside the nest, curious about the egg. She was surprised to find that the egg was nearly as big as her, unsure if it was sleeping. Noor whispered to the egg and gently placed her ear next to its purple shell. Then Noor heard a faint knocking, tap, 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 feeling the warmth of her body and her rhythmic heartbeat. The chick was beginning to hatch. The purple shell cracked open slowly with each tap. The crack extended with small zigzags left and right. Minutes later, a young bird with dark beaded eyes and a bright golden beak emerged. The top of the eggshell was still on its head like a big purple hat. Noor couldn't help but giggle as the baby bird tried to take its first steps with a piece of its shell stuck on its head. Unsure of its gender or species, she named it Blue after the feather that led her to it. It wasn't a particular fitting name, since right now it was plain white and very fluffy, but the baby bird seemed to like it. Blue seemed like a happy chick, but it looked very tired after a short introduction and a warm hug. Noor decided that Blue needed to rest. She cleared the nest of eggshell and brought fresh leaves for her brand new friend. Noor covered Blue carefully, making sure that it was nice and warm. Then, stroking its head gently, she told the bird her favourite story. It was about a beautiful unicorn with powerful wings and infinite knowledge under the layers of leaves. The chick looked very sleepy. It listened to N's story without a peep. Before she reached the happy ending, Noor noticed that Blue had its eyes closed. The baby bird had drifted into a nice and comfortable sleep. She stroked its head one last time and left the nest, promising that she'd be back in the morning, day after day. Noor returned to the nest. She brought food and books and taught Blue about flying and friendship. The baby bird grew bigger every day, and soon its fluffy plumage was replaced with strong, brilliant blue feathers. Blue had truly grown into its name. When it was old enough to fly, Blue started to flap its wings around the nest. Tiny sparkles of gold. Followed every flap Noor watched completely. Amazed, they reminded her of fairy dust. The first flights were short and safe. From the large nest, Blue flew downwards, testing the air and learning how to balance its body. Though the first attempts were a bit clumsy, it didn't take long for Blue to master flying. Noor still visited. Every morning they played together in the forest clearing, making up all kinds of games and stories. Blue would flap its wings and take off, leaving a trail of golden sparkles. Noor ran barefoot through the grass, following Blue's shadow on the ground. It was then that Noor realized just how large Blue had become. Blue's wingspan was as wide as a tree and much larger than an eagle, a falcon, or any other bird that she had read about. But no matter what type of bird Blue was, Noor was very proud. Her best friend had grown into a majestic creature. From takeoff to landing, Blue enjoyed every moment of flying with its iridescent blue feathers. The beautiful bird traveled through the sky faster than lightning. It was amazing to disappear behind the clouds and even cartwheel in the air. Up there, everything was peaceful, like gentle waves. The natural air currents helped Blue to soar up and down, remain aloft, and get precisely where it needed to be. Now Blue understood what it meant to be a bird, but Noor quickly realized it wasn't like other birds in the sky. It didn't fly in a flock or even have a family. Not to mention, it was multiple times bigger than the next largest bird. Blue saw how much other birds enjoyed flying with their friends and wanted to fly with its best friend too. Using its strong golden beak, Blue lifted N and gently placed her on its back. She hugged her best friend, nuzzling into the feathers on Blue's neck. It seemed that her dream to fly was becoming a reality, and held on tight as Blue started to flap its mighty wings. The grass beneath waved under the power of each stroke. Her yellow cape flapped gracefully behind her, like an arrow shot into the sky. Blue flew higher and higher. When they reached the clouds, Blue stopped their ascent and continued to glide through the air smoothly. Noor reached one hand up and touched a passing cloud. It was cool and left a mist on her arm. She couldn't help but let out a cry of pure excitement. Thanks to her wonderful friend, Noor was finally flying. The view from above was inspiring. No matter where she looked, there was so much to see. Noor recognized her village. Each house was a tiny grain of sand connected by a winding road. The forest she always walked through looked like green tapestry. The view made Noor's world seemed very small. Now she could finally see beyond its borders, and she began to realize that there really were no borders. They were just concepts of her mind that could be changed with a new perspective to her left. Noor noticed the dark outline of the mountains to her right. She saw rolling hills and green forests. Villages and cities, big and small, were scattered everywhere in between. "Let's go explore these new worlds," Noor whispered, gazing at the horizon. Blue screeched with delight, ready to begin their new adventure. With curious eyes and open minds, the two friends allowed the wind to be their guide. They knew that no matter where they went, their journey would be memorable. They flew high in the sky and saw inches above the surface of a crystal clear lake, no matter the altitude or direction. They took their time to appreciate the colors, the foreign smells, and many new sounds. It didn't take long for their view to change completely. The rolling hills transformed into flat meadows, and the evergreen forests faded into fields. Tall yellow flowers illuminated the ground. "The kingdom of the sun," Noor whispered into Blue's ear, as beautiful sunflower fields waved beneath the power of Blue's wings. Ever since she was a little girl and loved sunflowers in her eyes, these radiant plants were just like her, happy, bright, rooted to the ground, but always gazing at the sky. Perhaps some flowers didn't dream about flying, but every day they chose to focus on warmth and positivity. And that was pretty special. Blue hadn't seen sunflowers before. Excited about the discovery, the bird hovered over a field of flowers listening to N's stories. She explained that some of the round flower heads had a yellow center, while others a maroon one. You could collect the seeds for a delightful snack too. Diligent bees spiraled through the air, buzzing cheerfully from bloom to bloom like fairies with a magic wand. They lovingly touched the sunflowers, gathering their golden pollen. Noor smiled. She enjoyed the sun-soaked fields. No matter if she was on foot or flying, she appreciated being close to nature. Filled with glowing energy, the two friends continued their journey. Blue soared into the air with a swish. Noor watched the yellow carpet of flowers fade into the horizon. Just like before, they moved up and down, as light as a feather. After the sweet scent of flowers dissipated, the air took on a new smell. A light breeze caressed N's hair and skin, leaving a feeling of saltiness. Distant calls of seagulls confirmed what she had already assumed: they were close to the ocean. Blue was fascinated by the seagulls. They were rather chatty birds with a strong sense of community. A large flock came to greet them as they neared a sandy beach bordering the deep blue ocean. When they reached the shoreline, the seagulls landed on the golden sand. The beach was empty. Its shore was unspoiled with no on its back. Blue flew up and down the coastline, admiring the turquoise. Waters below the ocean moved back and forth, in and out. Each foamy wave washed over the beach with a long, relaxing whoosh. Noor had never seen the ocean, but its views and sounds captured her mind. In the most calming of ways, she imagined her feet sinking into the wet sand and the bubbly waves tickling her ankles. The coast inspired Noor's imagination. What lied farther beyond? Where land was no longer in sight, Noor asked Blue if they could fly across the ocean. Blue let out a screech, sharing in Noor's adventurous spirit. The farther they flew, the calmer the ocean seemed. Its surface was glossy and smooth. From high above, at lower altitudes, they could see the rhythmic swells that drifted endlessly toward a distant beach. The air smelled fresh above the water with her eyes closed, Noor enjoyed the warm rays of the afternoon sun. She thought about the ocean's depth and its diverse sea creatures breathing in deeply. No wish that she could see them, as the curious girl made her wish blue descended slowly with the tip of its wing. Blue touched the ocean's surface 3 times below them. The dark waters turned clear and see-through. Wow! No thought astonished at her friend's powers. She couldn't believe it. An underwater kingdom was right in front of her eyes. She saw schools of fish, shimmering jellyfish and man rays that soared through the water like blue did through the air. There were colourful corals, marvellous seashells and stars that made their own constellations on the ocean floor for a few moments. Noor imagined the ocean as a watery sky. It was vast and unending. In its waters, the sea creatures swam freely like the birds did in the sky. Then she saw an enormous blue whale. It surfaced the ocean for a breath of fresh air with a look of awe. Noor watched the large mammal. Its sharp exhale created a white cloud above the water. Then, after a deep breath in the whale, dove back into the abyss. It was amazing. Even Blue took notice. This whale was the first animal they'd seen that was larger than Blue. Their journey above water continued for quite some time. When the sun met the horizon, the 2 friends reached the shore on the other side of the ocean and waved goodbye to the underwater kingdom, promising that one day they'd return. The land looked rather different here. Golden dunes plunged straight into the waves, their soft emptiness glowing in the evening L. Noor didn't know much about the desert caressing Blue's feathers. She wondered if they were the only 2 travelers in this desolate world. Everywhere they looked, there were winding sand dunes. Each was slightly different than the next one reminded. No of a pyramid, another looked like a dragon. The farther they went, the more peaceful it seemed. As the day turned into night, the desert remained lit by a bright silver moon. Millions of stars freckled the sky. A few were even falling from the sky. Noor closed her eyes and thought of a wish. She wished that her adventures with Blue would never end. Flying was wonderful, and it introduced them to so many new magical worlds. Noor opened her eyes and hugged Blue tighter, grateful for the birds' loving companionship, watching another star fall to the desert floor. Noor realized that they needed a good night's rest. She closed her eyes again and wished for a cozy place to spend the night. When she opened her eyes, a brilliant sand castle sitting high up on a sand. June came into view. It had 5 tall towers and a castle gate decorated with seashells under the silver moonlight. It looked like it came straight out of a fairy tale. Noor pointed Blue towards it, who nodded in agreement. They landed carefully in front of the castle and knocked at the castle's gate. But instead of opening the gate, dissolved in the wind. The 2 friends entered. The inside of the castle was just as breathtaking as the exterior. There was a ballroom, a knight's hall, and a well-lit dining room filled with delicious foods. The walls, the chandeliers, and all of the furniture were made of tiny grains of sand. An interior courtyard with a small crystalline lake reflected the night sky above. After a few bites to eat in the dining room, the two ventured to the west end of the castle, where they found the royal bedrooms. It was time to call it a night, just like the first time they met Noor covered Blue. This time it wasn't with leaves, but with a warm blanket. She petted Blue's head gently and whispered a sincere thank you after their long trip. Blue was particularly tired. The big bird closed its eyes and soon drifted into a long, rejuvenating sleep under the sky full of glitter. Noor thought about her day. She remembered the feeling of weightlessness, and the first time she touched a cloud and all the beautiful places they visited. The thought of it all made her smile. She then laid down and closed her heavy eyelids. All of the excitement of the day flowed out of her body, and her muscles relaxed, and just like every night before, she dreamed of flying. But on this night, No knew deep down that her dreams were not only possible, they were real.